guys. So I'm David Rhodes, we've all met before. Welcome to the 23rd Annual CabaretFest, sponsored by the amazing Patricia Fitzpatrick. This is the portion where you all get to ask us any questions that you may have about how we function in the business, how this crazy world works. We will all do the best that we can to try and answer those questions. I will bring the mic out to you if you need it. I mean, it may not be necessary, but I'll do that for you. I'm going to do literally a one-stop elevator pitch on our panel because I think you've met them all. We have right here the fabulous Warren Shine, who is our Lifetime Achievement Award. Comedian, cabaret singer, voiceover, Pillsbury Doughboy, is that what it is? Pillsbury Doughboy is here. The amazing Angela Picard. If you have the opportunity to Google some of Angela's early work, I saw her on the Dinosaur Cinema on YouTube. It was amazing. Liza Minnelli's voice coach, and the grandmother of the incredibly talented Nicholas Cage. We have with us Sidney Meyer, cabaret aficionado. He runs Don't Tell Mamas in New York. Talk to him, he'll book you. Also a phenomenal performer in his own right. We did a production of I'm Sam Gray or something like that at Don't Tell Mamas 1,000 years ago. I was Sam Gray. You were the bad guy. You probably don't even remember. Bonnie, somebody wrote it.
Lee Sanders.
There you go. Bonnie Lee Sanders. We worked together. That's the kind of impression I make. No, we're literally talking 30 years ago.
That was at Sydney's bar mitzvah.
Exactly. We have our first time at CabaretFest, Great Forest. Also known as Doris Spear, producer, performer, educator, innovator, and looking damn good in those heels. Right? So, if anybody wants to add any accolades to that, they're more than welcome, but I think we all know each other at this point. So I'm going to turn this over to you people, and you can ask any one of us a question, or you can ask a question, and we'll all try to do the best to answer it. And I get to be this guy. Anybody have a question?
Raise your hands high. Yeah, come on.
Of course, it's going to be me first.
Absolutely, Gino, do it.
I can't tell you how impressed I was with all of you, but what I'm really interested in is, how did you evolve into cabaret? What did you start with? Like classical, rock, whatever? Just give me an idea of like, where did you come from?
So I'm going to do this first to make it really easy. So I come from a classical theater, television, and film background. I'm also a solo performance artist and started doing one-man shows. I decided that I wanted to incorporate music into my one-man shows. When you perform in a cabaret venue, the venue has a blanket agreement with ASCAP and BMI that allows you to sing covers of other people's songs and not have to pay for the rights. So I could no longer do the work that I was doing in conventional theaters. So I used the cabaret space because of the freedom to sing songs without having to be Moulin Rouge and pay everybody else. So I'm really a theater performer who is taking advantage of a legal loophole which allows me to perform in cabaret space.
Got it.
Next.
Anyone who took my class knows a little bit of my history. Basically, I got a job and I was completely untrained, and someone saw something in me, and I became a Mouseketeer basically for 5 years and traveled the world singing Disney stuff. And I learned the business from Disney, and I never stopped working. And I left singing, went into television. I was on TV for 12 years and returned to singing. And in many ways, I was a theater person, and for the same reason, I knew I could write my sort of theatrical storytelling with music and do it in a cabaret space and not have to pay to license those songs. And so I turned to the leaders. Sidney was one of them, and Lena Katrakis and Rick Jensen, who helped me learn the art form known as cabaret and take what I had learned through most of my life and turn it into cabaret work.
Well, I had first been on stage in summer stock, but when I came to New York, the first door opened to me, as it is to most anyone, whether you come from Pittsburgh or Peoria or Podunk, is cabaret. Before anyone knows you to put you in a show, you put yourself in one. And this is a tradition that goes back all the way to people like Barbra Streisand and Linda Lavin and Woody Allen, Joe Rivers, many of them. First got their first New York exposure and experience on a cabaret stage. And it was no accident that for me, that my heroes, I didn't consciously think of it that way, but it was the fact that the people I loved growing up were really entertainers. Jimmy Durante and Judy Garland, and the albums I loved were the ones with applause. So that cabaret was an open door. I started doing it, and it always remained an open door. And the people, you have no idea of the great stars of every medium, television, Broadway, movies, that all began on the cabaret stage. The general public doesn't realize that, but it is a fact.
Okay, is this on? Oh, there it is. Well, let's see. I'm a little different. I got married at 19 and already had my first child at 20, so that was my career at the moment. And then as the years when I was about 28, my husband at the time was working at this hotel called Bill Hahn's, and it was in Westbrook, Connecticut, very well known to all the cabaret artists out of New York that would come there and break in their shows. So of course, living there and loving to sing, I used to go watch all the shows. And one night, my sister-in-law said, "You gotta get a sitter, you gotta see this girl, she's amazing." I went, "All right." So she comes walking down the stairs, and I went, "Ooh." She had got a stitch of makeup on, a black dress, it was Barbra Streisand.
Oh, wow.
And I never forgot, and I said, who is she? You know, because she just didn't look like anything. She just walked down there, got on the stage, and my mouth never shut all through her performance. And that's the first I saw of something like that, and I said, I love singing like that. That's what I like to do, which I would do in my little house with my stereo every day when our kids were playing or sleeping, whatever. But what happened was, Bill Hahn's introduced me to Billy Rizzo. Does that name ring a bell with anybody? It does? Oh my gosh, he was the booker for the entire Playboy circuit. And I went into the city and I auditioned for him, and he immediately booked me, and I was on the road forever at every Playboy club all throughout the cities, doing 3 to 4 shows a night to an audience that just wanted to see the bunnies. So I had to, like, I didn't dress like them, I had like this, you know, let them do their thing. And anyway, I had to really get that audience. I had to win them, their attention away from the bunnies. And that was not easy. That's how I must have learned every trick in the book, how to win an audience. So I thank God every day that I was taught correctly how to sing from when I was 12. So I was able to get through all those shows every single night, 3 to 4 shows. You'd go from room to room to room. And I'll tell you, you learn. You really learn how to really work the audience and save your voice. And that's how it started. Of course, singing there, I sang all different types of songs. And then I was fortunate enough to get a record deal with RCA, and I had a hit record with the disco. I was in the disco field, Baby I'm Yours. So that kept me going, and I was just traveling, and where I did sing, my repertoire had to be, you know, quite broad. So, of course, I do love the cabaret songs. As you can see in my shows, I'm always throwing them in. But I love the diversity that I've been able to do, and that enables me to help anybody with different styles. Like, I did start to teach a lot, I had a lot of students, and everybody was different. So I never put me into them. I found out what was in them and brought that out. So that's what helped me, you know, be a teacher and a singer and a performer.
Tell them the name of the song you did.
Baby I'm Yours?
Okay.
Yes, on RCA. It was a disco hit. And I toured with Gloria Gaynor, and we all went to these clubs. And my kids used to love it. Can we come? Yes, come. I took my kids everywhere. My kids will have year in school. They allowed me to keep them, do the schoolwork with them, because I was a mother first, and that's how I had to keep it.
Mr. Shine.
That's right, Mr. Shine, that's right.
What?
No, he called me Mr. Shine, but I started at Nunzio Camarado's Knuckle Room in Staten Island. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. Well, let's see. I graduated the High School of Performing Arts when it was on 46th Street. That's a long time ago. And I started singing when, family gatherings and things. And my mother was a lyric soprano who was on the radio and recorded with Baby Snooks and Eddie Cantor. And that one thing led to another, and I always would be funny and try to do things. And I think the first gig I ever had in the Catskills, my mother got me a booking through Freddie Roman. May he rest in peace. We lost him almost a year ago at the Homoac. And I was opening for Sal Richards, who was also not with us anymore. And here I was, about 18, 19 years old, and I was not much taller than I am now. And I'll never forget, they had a 6-foot, and you're laughing at me and not with me. And I'll never forget, I was going on, I had a nice rehearsal with the band. I was as nervous as hell because it was a midweek show, and it was like 1,000 people from Hadassah. Which was kind of perfect because I'm Italian. So, and Sal comes over to me. I want to tell you one thing. Don't be funny. Don't smile. I don't want to hear a laugh. I don't want to hear a funny word. And I'm now like crapping my pants, But anyhow, it was a great experience. And by the time I started doing the Catskills, it was of course already kind of on its dive going down. And I got to meet legends like Barry Levitt, who I worked with many times. But my real dream had always been I wanted to be in musical comedy. So in the very early spring, that's when you'd look at Backstage and you would see all the auditions that are going on up in New England. And I worked for years for Carousel, the dinner, for the tent theaters. And I can tell you in my lifetime, I played Pseudolus about 6 or 7 times, in Forum, gosh only knows, and I was having the time of my life. I was just, it was like a dream come true. And then some of the producers and directors would say, you really sing nicely, beautifully, and your comedy is, kind of cool, and so we're going to let you be a little crazy. So it would lead to other things, and then through friends, I got to meet the wonderful Don Schaefer, who was one of New York's most fabulous, kindest men to do publicity for anyone. And through her, and I'm bringing up names that none of you may not know. Sydney might have known Herb and Evelyn Strauss, who had a daughter who had leukemia, and she passed away. So they started a foundation, and each year they would do a show at Carnegie Hall, and Marvin Hamlish would direct it and bring in stars, and Barry Levitt was the musical director, so I was fortunate to be in that, and they said, you've got to put a cabaret act in, you've got to go to places like Don't Tell Mama, and I was kind of young and I didn't know, so where did I start? Right across the street at Danny's Skylight Room, and who would go on first? The most sweet and gentle Blossom Dearie. Oh. And then I would do my show, it was in 1996, and Blossom came to the show, and she stayed, and she goes, you have such a sweet voice, you sound just like the Velvet Fog. So she said, we're going to call you the Velvet Mist. And then she said, I'm jealous as hell because your audience is so bigger than mine. And she came to every show I ever did. Well, that led me into cabaret, which I was having the best time because of the great late Jan Wallman. And I opened up at the Metropolitan Room doing a tribute to Mel Torme, and she came, and the only review I ever got in my life was from Jan, and I'm 71 years old now, you know? So one thing kind of led to another, but I've never given either, I would guess industries up, because I've been so fortunate to be in Ricky vs. Broadway reviews, so many shows along with Sydney. We had so much fun, and for Lenny Watts and Signesi, and then other shows, people would call me. But I will tell you that any success I have ever had in my life, and I've done movies and TV, and it's all great and it's nice. Believe me, it is. It's a tough gig. But I would not be sitting today here, even talking to you, if it not had been, of course, for my sweet Patricia. But it wouldn't. Unfortunately, I say this in a loving way. She took over the job of being my sister, because I would have no career in anything if it had not been for Dana Lord.
Yes.
I just want to add one thing too. A lot of us, certainly me in particular, spent most of my career behind a fourth wall, in a doublet or in front of a camera, being a serial killer or some psychopath, and never had the opportunity to do what we did in class, which was to actually be on stage as myself and speak directly to people. And that is something that cabaret offers us, that no other aspect of the business. And you'll see if you show up tomorrow, I'm always one for a challenge and willing to fly without a net. And 5 years ago I said the one thing I have never done is stood on stage in front of people as David Rhodes and sung a song and told my life story. And having the opportunity to do that only exists in these rooms. And that's a great reason to do cabaret.
I wanted to add something too, which I find when my career was breaking, you know, there was clubs all over the country, and you can constantly work. There were cruise ships. I was on cruise ships if I had a couple of weeks in between. I was never not performing. Today, it's not that easy. There's just not that many clubs anymore. So to have something like this all week and everybody get the opportunity to sing, this is a gift from Patricia. And it's just, I just treasure it myself. I love doing shows, and I have to say, this gentleman right next to me, I remember getting in touch with you when Good Nicholas was at 12. 11. What happened? I called him up and I said, Sydney, I have my grandson. I'd really like him to do a show. Don't tell him all this. And he did. He did do a show. Yeah. Oh, yeah. First, and then he did many after that. But it's just amazing how the world turns and how I mean, the Catskills. I was there every Friday, Saturday, Sunday from Jersey.
You look pretty good there.
Up and down, over and up, every single hotel. You know, I mean, sometimes I had to share a room with one little hand towel and try to take a shower. What am I supposed to do with this?
That was your hand?
Does anybody else have a question they want to ask?
Now's your chance. It could be anything.
Yeah, I once saw a documentary that Maria Callas was being interviewed by somebody, and she said, when I perform, she said, one of the things I try to do is have half my brain completely used and half my brain completely empty. And I'm wondering, since you are all performers, do you kind of ascribe to that when you're performing in front of people?
Well, I can, I don't know. My brain is working overtime when I'm on stage. I mean, it never stops. Last night's show, I rewrote yesterday afternoon and rewrote it while I was doing it. I mean, when I'm on stage, I know for me, my process is, I think I said this in class too, is I write what I want to tell, and then I find songs that I feel extend the storytelling. And for me, those stories are constantly morphing and changing. And when I'm on stage, I'm trying to read my audience, and if I think, they're not quite with me on that one, I rewrite it and think of something else. Or last night when I opened that magazine, if you saw my show and I talked about the diet, I had not planned to do that at all. And I looked down and thought, oh, that's funny. I'll talk about this crazy diet. And it just became part of the show. So for me, I don't know, I think if any part of my brain is empty, I don't know. It's just, it's like spinning so fast. My husband, who is not in the business at all, he's a tech guy, he said to me once, like, how do you do that? Like, how does it happen? And I said, well, your brain is thinking, trying to remember a lyric, trying to remember what comes after the song, trying to hear the music and make sure you're with that, trying to read the audience, figure out what they want and what I can give them all at the same time. I don't know how that happens. It's just, when you're in the business, I think combined up here, we probably have a couple of 100 years altogether. I've celebrated 47 years and it's just, you know, I think the hardest part when we all start out is doing all that. Like the hard part is getting up and having that all happen in your brain simultaneously and just naturally happening. But when it happens,
So I'd like to add to that as well. To me, a performance is an improvisation where you've done so much work that nothing can happen but what's going to happen next. When I was a drama student in London, the great Dame Janet Sussman was teaching a class in technique, and she looked at us and she said, "Darling, technique is what keeps the actor from falling off the stage." Which means you have to learn your lines so well, you have to know your blocking so well, you have to be so, it's like you know the alphabet, that's how you have to know your show. Then you get up there and you let your brain do whatever the hell the brain does, and you know that because you have done the work, you won't fall off the stage, you will not forget your lines, and everything will flow because you have put in that much work. So it's the repetition, the repetition, the repetition. You need to know your show like you know Happy Birthday.
And I just want to add really quick, last night when my first song, which I have, the one song I have done, I dropped the lyric and everyone in the audience finished it for me. So thank you. I knew I had a bunch of singers in the room because they said the right lyric. I was like, well, all right.
If you've done
And
the
they're
work,
waiting to get paid.
if you've done the work, you don't even need your brain. It just follows, reflects it. I'm sorry, I'm hogging the mic, but I'm here.
You know, it's interesting because, it's interesting because I just came off an 8-week run of Something's Rotten. Something Rotten, if you know that Broadway show, is played Nostradamus. So if anybody wants to know the future, I'll be more than happy to get out my crystal ball. It's $50 an hour. And, okay. And when you're doing a musical or a play, a show, it's interesting how you're doing your lines and you're in a scene, yet you're able to think of what's coming next. And I was taught by a director once, a show, a script is actually a poem of about 120 something pages. And once you get the feel of it, you know what's coming next. And it's, even if you drop a line, the audience, of course, you know, is never going to know the difference. But the art of improvisation, or what I particularly, I won't say I specialize in it, I learned accidentally working in Florida. Because if you work in Florida and Arizona and the Jersey Shore, you need to engage the audience. If you don't engage them in the first few minutes, 5, 10 minutes, well, you can sing all the Cole Porter you want. It isn't good. But once you do that and you talk to them, oh, where are you from? I'm from Indiana. Why? You know, just things like that. And they love it because when they go home, I was in a show today. And that's what makes cabaret or a variety show, you know, that I sometimes like to call it, because in Florida, they do things with different names. They say, no, this is cabaret. It wasn't a Broadway show that we're doing tonight, but that's what happens. And, you know, when Ray talks about when you forget something, nobody knows. It doesn't matter, and you just have fun.
Well, they all know.
Except this audience. These people, they seem to know my lyrics better than me.
Well, we were going to talk to you about it, but it does, but there is nothing better in the world, and I know that everyone agrees with. There is nothing better in the world than taking your little bow for 7 seconds. It's the greatest thrill. Nothing can beat it. Nothing.
Anybody else have something they want to ask? Yes.
Sorry, maybe.
Oh, no, you can, I can go to my chair.
Sounds good. Oh, do I keep this thing? No. Wanted to ask all of you, what is your favorite Sondheim song to perform, and why?
Favorite song that has not favorite.
That's really hard.
You get a cute question.
David, can you repeat the question? I don't think.
The question was, what is our favorite Sondheim song to perform?
And why?
And why? I've been enjoying all the songs that I have been performing. I will try to sing tomorrow. But I've been very moved lately with Children in Art. And because my mother inspired me to be an artist, and she herself studied art and chose a more practical route and became a medical doctor, and infused in me her passion for art. So being able to fulfill her dream and also be intimidated by her brilliance. I really enjoy singing that song because
What was the song?
Children in Art. Children in Art from Sunday in the Park with George. That's the one that came to mind for me. Stephen Sondheim said that his song that meant the most to him, that he identified most strongly with, was Anyone Can Whistle. That was the one that Stephen Sondheim felt was his most important song.
Anyone can whistle.
I would like to welcome to the panel the amazing Tracy Starr. Who, of course, we've all met and worked with and can answer any of your questions about accompaniment and music
And fashion.
and fashion. Also, I don't know if you guys know, but she is a singer-songwriter as well in her own right. So, performer, accompanist, music director, extraordinaire. Okay, so are we going to have some fun tomorrow? Oh boy. So the question is, what is your favorite Sondheim song to sing and why? Next.
Well, I have not performed many of Mr. Sondheim's opuses, just because, well, they're brilliant. He's a genius, and there's so many people that do them so magnificently. I thought, let them have them, you know. However, a few years ago at the Cabaret Convention at Lincoln Center, I was put on a Sondheim night. So I did get to sing them. I was instructed, but I will tell you this. I saw a number of his shows early on, Follies, the original 4 times, and Little Night Music. And I remember seeing a Little Night Music and in previews, and when I heard Glynis Johns sing Send in the Clowns, I couldn't even wrap my head around what, I never heard a song like that, and I said, this is the most adult song I have ever heard. And with all the incredible renditions of it, from Judy Collins to Frank Sinatra, and all the people that have had hits with it, for me, Glynis Johns, who it was written for, I mean, she captured every aspect of it. And the shows with Warren we do in New York are called Ricky Ritzel's Broadway. And it's sort of a not ready for prime time players, where he casts us all. And I did get to sing one time, Send in the Clowns, as Desiree Armfeld, the character who sings it in the show. It made all the difference. And I loved it. But I could go on, Broadway, Baby, Opry. I mean, each and every one is a treasure.
So last night I sang Being Alive, which I didn't, thank you. I did know, I so didn't want to sing it, but when I was at Disney as a Mouseketeer, remember Star Search? So we got a call, we got called up to the offices, there were 12 of us, 6 guys, 6 girls as the touring Mouseketeers kind of thing. And they said, you all have to audition for Star Search. They called us, they're coming into Orlando to audition you for the show. And I don't know if you know Marty Marty Thomas, he appears, he's an amazing singer. He actually beat Britney Spears in Star Search. He actually beat her. He was a little teeny kid and she became a megastar and he went to Broadway. But so Star Search was a big deal and I was so green and I was 19 years old and they were teaching us singing and acting and dancing and all this stuff. So we went and I didn't know. So I sang Being Alive. 19 years old, untrained, I picked Being Alive. And I got called back. And I sang it again. And I got called back. And I went in for the last callback and I was completely flat, out of tune. And I remember them like staring at me. And I had no technique, no training. I didn't know how to get myself out of it. So I just sang it all flat, off key. It was terrible. And then they said, oh, that was nice. I think we've seen enough. And so I've never ever done that song because there was this thing in my head that I'm gonna be flat and terrible. And when Patricia said, you have to do Sondheim, and I wrote the stories and I thought this song will fit in there, but I so don't want to do it. I was so scared and I worked with Blake Allen, who's my musical director, and then with Tracy, and it was like a challenge for me, and I did it last night, and thank you. And I was just so happy I got through it. I was like, yeah, it's my favorite song ever now.
Angela, you're up.
Just listening to him, I just love to get into lyrics, and of course, his lyrics are to die for. But I don't think I ever did a show, all those tours I was doing, without doing Sending the Clowns. Because my show was always so, cabaret, disco, it had all different kind of, tempos and styles. But my favorite was to be able to sit like this and just get the spotlight and get into that song and just sing it. And I used to get so emotional with it because of the lyrics. And I love it. So I was going to try to sing it here. I think someone was singing it. That's why I didn't jump in soon enough. But it's just so, it's just a beautiful song. It's rich. And yet you can talk it. Aren't we a pair? Yeah. The things you can do with it, you got the people right away. Right away they're into the lyrics, and that's what I love most about his songs when they're like that. You can just, because my heart's feeling it already, and I don't forget the lyrics. Phew, because it's not,
Mr. Comedy Tonight.
What?
I said Mr. Comedy Tonight.
Oh, yeah.
Pseudolus.
I bought a house from that show, so take it in there. I bought 2 houses. I was very lucky. I can't complain.
Pseudolus is the lead role in Funny Thing Happened on the Way to Florida and Zero Stones that Warren Shine has done many times.
Yeah, very lucky. I've been very fortunate. But I was at the Kansas City Opera at Light Opera, and we were doing, after 4, we were doing Company. And I liked it, and I've always been a Sondheim fan. I can't, and I think an absolute genius, there's no question about it. You have to read music fabulously and famously to get, to learn it and get through it. And somebody suggested, and I forget the writer's name, the song that I did get to sing was Everybody Likes Stephen Sondheim But Me. It was Alan Rackman, it was somebody. And they said, yeah, and that's the song that I sang, everybody, because let's face it, there were some people that, I guess for whatever reason, but I was very fortunate because I played Buddy in Follies, and I had to learn how to tap dance. And what are you laughing at? It's not that funny, And it was truly when I got to do Buddy's Blues, and I've got that God, why don't you love me? It was that has to be probably my favorite of all of the Sondheim songs.
Tracy.
I am not good at that question.
It's a rough one.
I can't pick one, and if I do, I'm always saying, oh, this is one of my favorite songs, and there's about 2,000 of them, and Yeah, and I'm sorry, that's a disappointing answer,
No,
but
I think
I
that's a
literally
beautiful
can't.
answer, and
I
a beautiful
can
answer.
name, I love all the songs that they mentioned. I also, the song that first came to my mind, but it, for no reason, it's random, is A Sunday by the Blue, Purple, Yellow, Red.
The orchestration of that is
I
just
love that
fantastic.
song. I love Anyone Can Whistle. I love Another 100 People. I love Marry Me a Little. I love Move On. I love, they're all brilliant. There really is not a song that Sondheim wrote that isn't brilliant. Even the ones if you go to Meg's show, she has a couple of one that she sings one that he wrote when he was 19.
Wow.
You know, and even that's clever. You know, even yeah. Anyway.
Anybody else have a question for the panel?
Yes. So a little different question. Jim Keating here, and I'm president of the Boston Association of Cabaret Artists. I was my second term. I was from 2003 to 2007 when my job was totally easy and I could devote half my workday to it. Now I'm a lot busier, and so we started off kind of scaled back with open mics and master classes and occasional performance opportunities. And then we shut down the pandemic. We're going to resume open mic activities, and I want to do some more master classes starting in the fall. A singer I respect a lot had come to our open mics and noted, and I agree totally, that a lot of the community performances, they've gotten very stale. They've gotten very comfortable, enough growth, and people were just doing the same not so great performance techniques over and over and not grow. I want to avoid that in the future. And so for, it's education, it's coaching, how can we do that? And then one option was like at an open mic, a feedback form, here's what you did well, here's what you could work on. So I wonder, in a community like that, we have people coming back together, how can we make it a community of continual growth?
I haven't answered that. I don't love, like my first instinct was like, oh, I don't love the community feedback. If you have a team, trust your team. Don't ask everybody. I have people who like clients who come in and said, I went to this other music director and he told me to do this, and it's kind of like, okay, great, you can go to him, and because if you trust somebody else, go to somebody else. I don't think you should go to 1,000 people, because music is, there are as many people as there are, that's as many different answers as there are. So everybody has an opinion. And I don't think that having people who are on your same level giving you advice is going to make you any better. I mean, it might be fun for the people sitting out there feeling like they can judge you. That's the fun of that. The other thing is, and this is probably better advice, have some kind of a theme with your open mics. And you can do on or off, and you might even want to say, if you've done a song here, or like you can only do the same song twice, or three times, or something like that. So you have, but if you have a theme or something, okay, it's Sondheim, or okay, it's sad songs, or uptown, or funny, or whatever. So they have a little bit of a time to plan and think, oh, I'll try something else. Or you can literally have the theme of something you've never sung before, like you can do things. That helps too. That helps to.
And that stretches the performers.
That stretches them.
My answer is always, hear everybody and then listen to yourself. Let them talk and then do what you want to do.
Oh,
Right.
yeah, I think, New York is full of open mics, as we know. I mean, everybody sings for a different reason, right? Everybody does cabaret for a different reason. Sometimes it's a hobby, sometimes it's a living, and everything in between. And I think open mics are great ways to just get people involved and meet them and give people an opportunity to live the dream. I mean, the dream is to stand on stage and sing, even if it's just one song. I mean, I think one song is harder than a show because you have, 3.5 minutes to like make it happen. But I agree totally with Tracy. You can't ask for opinion. That's a master class kind of situation. And even then, you have to be very careful about so-called criticism because, it's no one wants to hear criticism. It's always hard to take because for artists, and as Tracy said, 1,000 people will see the same painting or hear the same song 1,000 different ways. But I would just encourage, I think it's great. Open mics are great. It's great places to meet. When I first started out 9 years ago, we had Salon in New York.
Oh,
And I used to go to Salon, and that's where I met everybody. I met everybody at Salon. That's how I got to know, and I got to learn the art form better. I got to meet musical directors, other artists, and it was a great way for me to get into the cabaret community and to learn the craft of cabaret. So I think open mics are great, and I also think having a theme is always good. Make it a rock and roll theme, make it a jazz theme, a Broadway night, a movie theme night, I Hate You song night, I Love You song night. We love the I Hate You songs, they're always more
The
fun.
word umbrella in it.
Yes, umbrella night.
Let's try to find out.
Anybody else have a question for the panel? Yeah.
This question is for Tracy. So Tracy, what advice would you give to singers as they approach the accompanist with their music to make the experience go as well as possible?
So how do they prep their,
How do they prep and what they give you and what you discuss in the short time before they do their song?
okay. Of course, every situation is different, and you're talking about at an open mic, if a singer comes to you at an open mic. Okay. First of all, do not give a piano player 10 sheets of single music.
This was a selfish question, by the way.
Yeah. That's number one, because anything else can be faked or, but if you can't turn a page or if you have to put, there was one time I put, it was an upright piano, it was like 8 pages and then this and then it was, like here, go back to there. If you can get your music in a way that is not, if there's a lot of turnbacks, then maybe you can set it up, prepare your music so it just turns forward, so people don't have to turn back. If there's key changes, highlight them. Don't assume somebody knows a piece of music. Don't assume somebody will automatically know there's a key change when they're sight reading. Let me see, what you need, as long as if your music is clear, when you go up to the piano player, you first want to give them a tempo. Many times, people will come up to me and say, okay, it goes like this. And then they can get up here and go, okay, do you want me to play it? Because they're in a hurry and they want, and they, so yes, understand your tempo, feel it in your body, and know that you're giving the correct tempo. There are many things that not many, but there are things that singers think are important that aren't important to the piano player. Like, I hold this note. If it's a high note, you probably hold it. We know that. If it has a vibrato, we know you probably hold it. A lot of times, singers will come up to me and say, "This is what I do here," and they'll go through the whole music, and I'm kind of like, and then at the end, I'll say, "So you do it as written." Is there anything I missed that you wanted me to mention?
The key, sometimes if there is a choice of 2 keys a half step apart, choose the one that has fewer of those little shapes at the beginning of the line, whether they're sharps or flats. The fewer
He
of
wants
those-
you to do it, he wants you to do it in a shape.
Another thing is, again, if you have a choice of arrangements, a couple things. On music notes, for example, yep.
They will have sometimes something that's called Singer Pro. And if you see that, that's the one that you want. Because if there's another one, the other one often has the melody, the exact melody the singer is singing in the piano part. And you don't want that because how are both of you going to be in sync? And it's redundant, and it's not the real accompaniment. The other thing I would say is chord symbols. If those are the little names of chords that you'll see often with the guitar thing right above the staff. And if it has that, that's always better because we can fake it instead of playing every note that's written there. That's a shorthand for essentially what's supposed to be there. And that can help as well.
Yes, and that's especially important if you need your music transposed. If you come in with a Sondheim, and you want it transposed, oh, I just want, I love when people go, I just want it half a step. I just want it half, you know.
And it's an F to start.
Yeah. And, but if there's chord symbols, it's going to be easier for a piano player. It's just the amount of math lessons that way.
And say thank you.
Yeah.
Like I've held auditions and I see singers and they don't even say thank you to these accompanants who are working their buns off for them and their fingers are hurting and they just walk away and never even say thank you.
My favorite thing is when somebody screws up and they look at you.
I've seen them do that when they screw up, they look at the piano.
Of course, because they don't know what else to do.
Right.
Never walk up to a pianist with a piece of sheet music written in number 2 lead pencil Ticonderoga with scribble marks all over it because they will kill you. Work with them in advance when you can. And if you're fortunate enough to find someone who is like this beautiful young lady sitting next to me who I admire and adore.
So young.
Yes. Well, I knew you when you were bat mitzvah. So, and you have your music in maybe finale, where it's big and bold and all of the changes are there, and the key changes and the repeats, so it makes it so much easier. They will have so much more respect for you as a performer, as opposed to when you're bringing the page that you ripped out of a notebook. Trust me, it works.
You know, all of this is not for me, it's for the singer. You know, it's so your song will go as easy as possible. So anything you can do to, and but if there's chord symbols, it's going to be easier for a piano player. It's just the amount of math lessons that way.
And say thank you.
Yeah.
Like I've held auditions and I see singers and they don't even say thank you to these accompanants who are working their buns off for them and their fingers are hurting and they just walk away and never even say thank you.
My favorite thing is when somebody screws up and they look at you.
I've seen them do that when they screw up, they look at the piano.
Of course, because they don't know what else to do.
Right.
Never walk up to a pianist with a piece of sheet music written in number 2 lead pencil Ticonderoga with scribble marks all over it because they will kill you. Work with them in advance when you can. And if you're fortunate enough to find someone who is like this beautiful young lady sitting next to me who I admire and adore.
So young.
Yes. Well, I knew you when you were bat mitzvah. So, and you have your music in maybe finale, where it's big and bold and all of the changes are there, and the key changes and the repeats, so it makes it so much easier. They will have so much more respect for you as a performer, as opposed to when you're bringing the page that you ripped out of a notebook. Trust me, it works.
You know, me, it's for the singer. You know, it's so your song will go as easy as possible. So anything you can do to make it easy for the piano players is for you.
Anyone else have a question for the panel?
My favorite song is Everything's Coming Up Roses, possibly because of the way Ethel Merman sings it, but I was just wondering, that's a collaboration, so do you feel that many songs that he collaborated with are Sondheim songs?
What? I don't understand the
Where
question.
he didn't write the music.
Where he didn't write the music, but he wrote
Well,
the
it's
lyrics.
still a Sondheim song. I mean, everything we do is a collaboration. Whether even if he wrote the music and the lyrics, he collaborates with people. Everything we do as artists is a collaboration. We don't do any of this
I think
alone.
the answer really is technically in the canon of Sondheim songs, West Side Story
Yeah.
counts.
Yeah.
So we do consider those Sondheim songs if he was involved in any way. It's
Yeah.
part of his canon.
What was the actual question?
Whether a song that Stephen Sondheim wrote with someone else counts as a Sondheim song.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody else have a question? Yes, Lisa.
So this week is my happy place. I am so thrilled to have an opportunity like this that I've got goosebumps all freaking week. And I've been smiling like I haven't smiled all year, you know, and I smile during the year. So given that, I'm hearing what you all say about, you know, the 30 years ago that you have lived through and enjoyed, and some of the waning of the venues and the folks that, you know, really were triumphing and supporting and manifesting this art. I find myself thinking about the next, you know, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, not just because, you know, it's getting rough, but also, you know, in terms of cabaret, what would you, any advice, thoughts, I'm sorry? Okay, but I gotta finish the question, David. Any thoughts about what you would have each of us do as ambassadors and as lovers of this art form, so that we enliven and grow and make sure that the art form continues and that we have venues and people to collaborate with and our own sort of moment if we're entering a little later than you all entered the world of cabaret.
So what I want to say, because I've only been doing this for about 5 years, I think there has been a perception in the past that the cabaret is a legendary art form where somebody stands along next to a piano and they sing the Great American Songbook, and that this was the great golden days of cabaret. My feeling is that cabaret is a space where anything can happen and what anybody can bring to the table that's new and different and now is very exciting and very valid, and I would encourage the next generation of cabaret performers to embrace the present, learn from the past, and move the art form forward and not keep it as a museum piece.
And I say more events like this.
Yeah.
Events like this,
I
like
was
the
just
local-
about to say that because I've been coming, I think this is my 4th year, and I've gotten to know most of you throughout these years. And the friendship and the love and respect that we all have for each other, whatever position we have, whatever knowledge we have all incorporated all this into each other. And I've never felt so warm and happy. Lisa, talk about happy. I mean, you know, we all go through life and we have all these kind of, we're losing people we love one after another, or whatever's going on. This is such an escape to the most wonderful time for me. I can't wait to get here and to see everybody. But what I'm seeing this year is all the improvements of all of you, that especially giving them the opportunity to do these shows, you know, more than ever. I've seen the growth. Talk about goosebumps and happiness. I'm related, I really am. And the most important thing we all need, us too, is confidence. You know, and I think this is where we get it. And the support that we're all giving each other at these shows is, I cry, because it's so beautiful. I just had to say that.
And that is great. I also think, first of all, you're amazing, and you were amazing in class. I just want to say that.
I second that.
You were just so beautiful. But think to move into the future, we all just keep doing what we do. Just keep doing the art form and putting the art form, whatever form that is, out there. As long as we keep doing it, we keep it alive, right, Sid?
Yes, I'm sure you have something to say.
Well, you want to know about the future? I have no crystal ball. However, I have a disco ball. You know, the cabaret, for those of us who've been around forever, like for theater, people are always predicting its death. You know, like, well, everything is dying and all. Well, it's living in new ways always. And yes, all the clubs I ever went to, if I listed them, it looks like an obituary of New York nightlife. Yet, there are always new places. And cabaret, I think, will always be here. There are always people that will want to express themselves in this singular fashion. And it's just you and the night and the music, and what could be easier, simpler, or better. So I think just the future will take care of itself if we keep going.
In New York, there's an interesting thing that happens, and there's sort of like two, not opposing camps, sort of a little bit, but it's sort of like uptown cabaret and downtown cabaret. And the downtown cabaret is a little edgier. You know, the drag is a little less fancy, you know?
Yeah.
It's a good way.
You know, it's and not, and also, and but the interesting thing is, and sometimes it sort of weaves its way, and they meet. You know, I play for uptown and downtown people, and but I feel like there's, and not completely, this isn't cut and dry, but a lot of the uptown is a little bit older and the downtown's a little younger, and it's interesting to see the difference. And I kind of think it's a beautiful thing, because some of these downtown people are like 12, you know? They're like 17 or 18. They're at the beginning of their lives, and like, of course, they have an idea of cabaret that I may not have, but what I love about cabaret is that it can be anything.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah,
As opposed to other genres of music, it can be anything. It can be, you know, any style. You can be who you are. You don't have to fit into a certain mold, and the better it is the more you are yourself. You know, the more you, anyway, but I feel like I agree with, I'm not sure who said it, but just keep doing what you do, keep learning, keep trying different things, keep, you know, just, my mantra in life is just kind of, I'm putting my head down and I'm just doing the work. I'm just doing that. Every once in a while I look up and go, nah, I'm gonna
Yeah, by the way, when I went down to Joe's Pub and I wanted to do a show at Joe's Pub, and they tell me, oh dear, no, you're just not downtown enough for us.
Oh my
You
gosh.
need to be not so nice. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna stay in my sold out shows up in the Triad then. And they refused to book me, plain and simple.
But you,
I know.
then they don't know who you are. Then they don't. Then
Yeah, and I was just like, that's fine, I'm doing quite well uptown, so I'll just stay uptown. I'll see you at 54 Below next week, right? I got a show, I'll see you later.
How many of you go to a show and you're watching a specific performer sing or whatever their act may be, and you kind of get jealous and why didn't I think of that? And why am I not doing that? And then you go do a show. I'll never forget This is the best advice I think I ever got in my life. I had just finished doing a Ricky Ritzel Broadway show, and let's face it, I was the comic relief of the night. Because when you do a show with Ricky, sometimes he can't find the music, and he'll just say in the middle of the show, tell a joke, do something, whatever it may be. So the show was over, and one of the greatest mentors of my life, I walked over to him and I said, listen, I'm very upset. I feel that, I don't know, I'm just not hitting the right something I want to be, I want to do, I want to be Steve Lawrence, and I want to be, whoever. And he looked at me and he said in a few words, just be yourself. And that was Jay Rogers who gave me that great advice. Just be yourself.
I'd love to just quickly follow up, if you don't mind. I love everything you're all saying about the being in cabaret, the developing ourselves, the fact that we need to and probably all will continue going. But the less sexy question or less sexy aspect of my question really had to do with venues. I have a little bit of New York envy. I live in the Boston area. And while I could probably think about coming to New York to do a one-off show, I'm thinking more about the development of venues. Any thoughts about, we have one place that we tend to all go in Boston, one.
Thank God for that.
And thank God for that, and it's a blessing, but
It's expensive.
yeah.
Opening a club, you know more about this because you run one.
Right.
It is so expensive. 54 Below, take an example, opened in New York 10 years ago maybe? Was it 10 years? So 10 years ago, the two guys who own it are one of the biggest Broadway producers of all time, Tom Vartel and Baruch. They own it. They went out and raised millions of dollars, and they've lost so much money. The what? Hemorrhaging money to the point that they now turned it into a nonprofit to save 54 Below. It's a very hard business, and anymore, it's just really expensive building a club. It's really tough. So you need to find people with money who really want to have something, and then you have to find people to support it. I mean, it's business. It comes down to money, right? To own a club is a business, and not an easy one. So
Three of the 6 months that I spend putting this together is getting money. So the money you pay.
The money that you pay to be here might be expensive to you. I try to keep it as low as possible so more people can come. But it costs thousands of dollars more. Now, this room alone, tonight's gonna cost almost $2,000.
Wow.
We're not gonna get $2,000 in ticket sales. All right, so I have to go out and get people that say, all right, Kit Kat by bank. All right, we'll do this for you. So Father Jeff, God bless Father Jeff, because he puts in enough money so your fee for your master class is $300. You get 4 or 5 of the best people in the country 5 hours at a time. You're not going to get that anywhere for $300. But Father Jeff's scholarship underneath, excuse me, it used to be individuals. Now I give it to everybody, so everyone pays less than they would have to pay. But as Ray was saying, and as Sydney knows, things that, I had a drink last night for the first time in 7 or 8 months because of personal reason. $12. I haven't had a drink since they were $2.
in New York, that's 16.
And then a mandatory tip of $2.40. Electronically. So $14.40 for a drink this big, that unfortunately did not have the results I was looking for. But I couldn't believe it. So when you think about, it'd be nice to have a venue. If I won the lottery, I would buy this place and turn it into just, Cabaret East or whatever. But thank God for, don't tell mamas, thank God for Club Cafe. Thank God for the places that we have, And that's why I want to see this particular art form. Cabaret really just means a small space. It's not a type of music, it just means a small venue. It's a room. So I call it the art form of cabaret, the art form of a room. But I mean, the truth is, I think the more things like this happen, the more people go forward with a new enthusiasm, with a new, ooh, 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 even if it's just, oh, look who I met. Someone said at the club, even though we got thrown out, someone said at the club, what I like about you people is you seem to be a family. Well, that's wonderful. So I just asked everyone, go forth and preach. Go forth and tell all your friends I had this wonderful experience, like Angela's doing, not to get them to come here, but just to get them to realize there's something going on. Because there's been cabaret since people sat around a fire and told a story in Ireland. I mean, so we're storytellers as people, and there'll always be a form of this. But finding the venues, Lisa, you're right, it's hard. So let's keep these people alive.
I don't know who to attribute this quote to. Maybe somebody here knows, but somebody, I believe there's a quote, how do you make $1 million in cabaret? You start with two.
Yeah. I wanted to say, so you need to think out of the box and create things. If you know somebody with a big living room and a keyboard, that's what, invite all your friends, have a salon. If you know somebody who has a big backyard, maybe you can do something like that. You know, you can have a summer series. We know a woman named Karina Sowers Adler, and she creates things. She just creates things. She'll find a place where she'll beg to be a part of a thing, and then she'll have every month or every 2 months she'll have music at the mansion, and she'll invite her 5 friends to sing, and she'll invite all the people in the neighborhood, and it has become a thing. I feel like that's one of the things that might be great that comes out of it's impossible to find a venue. You know, you can create your own venue, and you know, you can have something that's everybody a potluck, and it can become a whole. You know, you bring your own thing, and everybody just sings, and you have 3 hours or whatever, and people just it's a party. But yeah, you know, I think that's kind of a beautiful way to handle this.
There's rumpus.
Yeah, I have a rumpus room. My rumpus is always active. There's another girl in New York, Reyes Katona Bennett, and she lives in an area of New York City called Tudor City, and she has a little park in Tudor City, and she does a summer thing where she gets a keyboard player, sometimes a bass player, and invites a couple of her friends, and then all the people from Tudor City come down in the afternoon, sit in chairs, have a Coca-Cola or whatever, and listen to great singers. And you know, you're not gonna make any money, but part of what we do is, if you wanna be in this, you just have to sort of do it and see where it goes. You know, you build audiences, you build interest, and that happens and you build that community of people. And those kind of things are great, those sort of park gatherings and backyard salons. They're a wonderful way to introduce people who have no idea what the hell cabaret means. They think Liza Minnelli is singing or something, I don't know.
I have to agree with you, because after COVID, you all are aware, how many did shows on Zoom? I mean, right? So, I mean, I had the best opportunity with Nicholas and Mike Renzi for 1.5 years. Every Wednesday night, there you were. Had it with Billy Gilman on Monday nights. And then we do the after party. You saw the after party, oh boy. But we had just so much fun, because I have a big music room with a piano, and we got all the, you know, the equipment to put the TV show on. But those things are fun. You'd be surprised how every week you can find a couple of songs, even if you're on for a half hour. All of a sudden you see, you know, there you are, Ed, live. Big people, all of a sudden you got 200, 300 people, and what are you doing? You're growing with your talent. I mean, it was,
People made more money during the pandemic.
I know, it's
With Venmo tipping.
the Venmos, right.
Than going stars.
Exactly.
Than going into the city and doing it.
Good old Venmo.
Yeah,
You
good
know,
old
it's
Venmo.
great, it's great. You know, for the past 20 or 21 years, you may, I don't know if it's a secret, I performed in over 3,000 assisted living developments. And in my career, I have never, ever used, I'm going to whisper this, tracks. I go with a live music pianist, accompaniment, and there are lots of huge companies that own assisted living. It is probably the third largest business and franchise that's opening up in the United States today. And I will do on an average anywhere from 2 to sometimes 5 places a week. Will they pay you a lot of money? Absolutely not. But you get to work and you get to make people happy. And then about 6 or 8 months ago, we were doing one of the assisted living, and one of the neurologists came over to me and said, would you be interested in coming upstairs to what's called the lockdown unit? Well, first I thought, am I going to jail? Well, it was for the dementia and Alzheimer's. And I said, well, what do we do? He said, just do what we just saw you do with the residents. And I'm going to tell you something. I would do it, don't ever tell my agents, I would do it for free. It was as if these people came out of a cave that they're living. If I showed you the letters from these people's parents, my mother hasn't said a word in 3 months. And we would just go up and sing, which is the greatest medicine for them, and talk and kid with them. And I've been doing it ever since. And now I actually get paid for doing it. And it isn't a lot, but there are so many other things you can do. Not to take anything away from going to a cabaret room, but in order to gain the experience and do the open mics, find these places, find your Knights of Columbus, find your temples, find your churches. They're always running a gala, a promotion, and offer to entertain. Invite your friends, they pay a small percentage, a small ticket price to come in, and it is called entertainment.
It is.
Don't confine yourself, because that's how you'll learn, and that's how you'll get ahead. And you'll see it really works.
I have to say, Nicholas was just graduating high school, and he was all nervous because his mother said, you got to go to work now. And he goes, I'm going to work. And I said, well, I have an idea. And I said, if you don't want to work in a grocery store, how about I call this place and you go make up a show and go start singing. He's been doing it ever since. He still fills in.
It was my idea, and he graduated last year.
I think it's interesting, like we hear from everyone here is that we do what we love.
That's right, and
And
you learn.
for some people that means it becomes their business,
Yeah.
it becomes their living. We've all been very lucky to make our living doing it, and that's such a gift. But during the pandemic, I didn't want to sing because I felt like I sound like crap in my bathroom trying to sing. So I created a series and I interviewed all these artists, and then it got picked up, and it's been streaming for 4 seasons now, and it's
awesome.
It's like, you do what you love, and that leads to so many other things.
And a show is a show.
A show is a show.
And I remember the Catskills, how many times you go up there, do the big show at the big rooms, like bigger than this, with the orchestra, and then we get in the car and drive to a bungalow colony with all the flies going in my mouth.
The first time I played the Concord
They make same money too.
I was playing the Concord Hotel. I was opening for Toady Fields. Let me give you just a real quick. The Room was the largest nightclub in the Northeast. It held 3,000 people.
With knockers. They had
Yes,
knockers. Remember the knockers?
Oh my God.
If Tony was alive, I'd tell you were talking about knockers. And here I am walking out on stage, and there were 3,000 people. If you don't think I wanted to crap my pants. And I did my 40 minutes, and she came running. I don't know how many of you remember Toady Fields.
Oh, I wish I did too.
She came out and she whispered in my ear, Warren, I'm not ready yet. Toady, I'm out of material. Warren, I don't give a shit. And you just go on, you're fine. It doesn't matter where you work. Do what you love. when you can do it, and you will be a better person and a better performer for it. Don't play golf, entertain.
Like we were all saying, a show is a show, no matter if there's one person or
Why do
3,000.
you always have to get the last word?
I don't know, it's how I was raised.
Jewish.
Go ahead.
So,
Live at the Catskills.
I actually asked for the microphone to make a comment, but I also want to follow up on this conversation and maybe mention a success story, because in 2014, I had moved into my condominium building, and it has an enormous lobby, big enough to have 2 concert grand pianos, both of which were unplayable. So we managed to get the administration to fully restore the Steinway. And they said, well, do it if you give us, if you assure us 2 concerts a year for the residents, etc. Paid. And I said, okay, but I think we can do better. On Sunday, we have our 89th concert.
Wow.
Started 2014. Eclectic, classical, opera, but we've more and more cabaret. So we've had Frankie and Andy, we've had Pamela Enders, the Carol O'Shaughnessy, we'll have Jan Peters starting next September, and we'll do some open mic there as well. So, and this is in a private condominium. Condo fees pay performers $400 for an hour.
We'll be there.
We're running.
And students, so we have lots of students in the area, the 200, and MD, amateurs, etc. from the area.
Great.
Do it for fun.
That's
and
it.
We get 10 concerts a year. But I wanted to thank you folks. I wanted to thank you folks for the bigness of the tent of cabaret. Age, experience. Many people here have been performing since childhood, and some of us started at 69. So, and yet we feel welcome, and it's so wonderful. Thank you.
So we've got about 5-10 minutes before I think we should get into the rehearsal for this evening's show. So if anybody has a burning question that they'd like to ask,
Over here.
I would love to share that. I can do it. I'm running.
Sorry about this.
That's all right. I used to be a gym teacher.
I'm a star now. I wanted to make a quick comment and actually a message. My niece used to manage Downtown Harmons, and she saw the city doing Send the Clowns, and she's still trying.
What's your niece?
Maggie Cunningham?
Oh.
Yeah, and she lives with Ricky Ritzel and Ted, so they know. My quick question is, what is your quintessential Sondheim score? Not answer why.
Well, I love Sondheim, but when I was a kid, I went to shows and I saw the original company, and I felt like I'm still convinced Bobby was gay, and I'm still convinced that show is about gay, although Sondheim was kind of mixed. He didn't really want to admit that, but I saw that show and I loved it. It's how I got my equity card up in the Catskills doing that show.
I'm definitely a Sunday in the Park with George person for that answer. Sunday in the Park.
Follies.
But I love Forum because it was just funny.
Because it employed you.
The real interesting story, when that was being done out of town for previews, the show was a bomb. They never thought they'd see it in the city. And everyone said, nobody understands the comedy. So one night he was back to his hotel and he wrote Comedy Tonight. Everyone learned it the next morning at 8 o'clock. They did it that night, and it ran for about 4 or 5 years. And it's been revived on Broadway, I think, 3 times. And it is one of the most in-demand shows for licensing throughout the United States, throughout the world.
And my father wrote the melody.
Yes, he did. That's right, he did. And Pat is now running CabaretFest, so go figure. So, no, but it's true. How things happen.
This is your favorite Sondheim score? Well, this is an embarrassment of riches to say, but of course, I saw the original Follies 4 times, as I said, and that score to me, just even taken out of the show, there's everything there. One Last Kiss, Broadway Baby, every style, every type of song. I also think little night music is the most elegant, sophisticated, witty, and going back to Gypsy, which is a Sondheim show too. I mean, my stars, you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Can't.
And I also like Merrily, which is just now kind of coming into its own because it was a flop, but it's gorgeous, and it was kind of written before he got much more complicated. So there's kind of a simplicity to the score with it, which I found refreshing.
Every writer, every composer, they always have one show, it's like a cult show. When I did Something Rotten, what made it successful on Broadway were the artists and actors that kept going to see it. And when you talk to the general public, they come to see it and go, what the hell is this thing about? With every reference to every show that had been on Broadway. And when Nostradamus comes out, Les Miserables, the place, they go friggin' nuts. And it's just true, that's how he wrote. He wrote things like that. And but Follies, I even though I love comedy, had to be the quintessential show.
They're all great.
They're all great. And I wish I had the rights to all the shows.
So I think we have time for one more question, otherwise there we go, you big Gino.
I came here for the Sondheim stuff because I have a history of coming through the whole American Songbook, even opera, and Rodgers and Hammerstein and Clockwork. How do you make Sondheim more accessible? When I first encountered it, when I saw a company and I tried to play it and sing it, I hit a brick wall. And I just couldn't figure out if it was technical, and then I realized you needed a shrink to get through the lyrics because it was so deep. How do you make it more accessible? Because in the high schools, they'll do productions of South Pacific, but they never do Sondheim. How do we make it more accessible? Because there's not enough tools out there.
Well, I did see a high school do Company. It was very interesting. That's all I'm going to say. I think, you know what, I have to agree with, again, when Pat said, oh, it's a Sondheim festival, you got to do Sondheim, I thought, how the hell is Doris Deer going to do Sondheim? Doris Deer is about the rumpus room and sort of a period thing. It's all about the approach. It's all about what comes, it's about the script and the story that you're trying to tell. And I think for me, I wrote the stories I wanted to tell and then rewrote them. But suddenly those songs that are so hard and so difficult, I think, just fit. They just naturally fit within the storytelling and just became a part of my storytelling. And if you saw my show, I mean, I just sort of talk about my mom and then sing, you know, the song. And I think that's how it becomes approachable. Because I think his shows work because the songs attach themselves to the storytelling so beautifully, and in perfect musical theater, the song furthers that story.
I think the answer to that is what we saw in the 5 spotlight shows. I've seen Sondheim and I wasn't a big fan. I wasn't, I was busy being pregnant.
A lot.
David, could you give her the mic?
So,
David, could you give her the
when I
mic?
started hearing Lynn's show, when I heard Jeff's show, when I heard Charles' show, when I saw Vivian's show, using Sondheim songs to tell their story. Using Sondheim songs to tell their story? I heard the lyrics all differently. When you sing a song from Sondheim, and 2 days later, Jeannie does a song from Sondheim, same song, different story. I'm like, so I'm sucked into the genius, really, of a lyric that can tell all kinds of stories, depending on who's saying it. And when Lady Drew walked out, I thought, this is never going to work. Pennsylvania Dutch, and it did. Every song, every lyric she sang told her story. So I don't think I would give my grandchildren tickets to go see The Assassins or Sweeney Todd, but I'd take them to a cabaret show with Sondheim music in it because of the approach.
I'm coming in.
Can you hear me if I talk like this?
They need the mic for the video.
It's not that
You
important,
can
but
talk.
I'm speaking as a teacher, having taught in many schools, that Sondheim is alive and well in the schools, and they are doing Sondheim. They're more sophisticated kids now, and they want to do Sondheim. The problem is trying to get them to understand the classical music theater genre. So Sondheim is, I can speak from experience in saying Sondheim is happening in schools now. And I know Rebecca over there who teaches as well. Sondheim is big, isn't it?
It is. I know I'm not like.
You're okay,
it is. But I think it's in a different way than it used to be because it's so much standalone. And I think there's more of an approach now, even in the voice teaching community, to approach it lyrics first. And we, in our department, I teach in a theater program at a college. The students are not allowed to sing Sondheim before they speak Sondheim. It's just absolutely not allowed in the studios. They cannot bring it in and sing it to us first. Yeah.
Well, okay, yeah, sure, Jeff, come.
I know we're running out of time, but I just wanted to say thank you to you all. This is my third full CabaretFest plus a half back before COVID. And each time I come, each class I give, each time we get a chance to perform, I'm learning and I'm trying to drink it all in. And I think I might speak for many of you, but I can't express enough my appreciation for all that you've given us in those master classes each time. You learn when you're up there, you learn when everyone else is up there, and it's a phenomenal experience. So
Well,
thank
it's
you.
certainly showing you in your performance.
I worked for 3 years, and I have seen and worked with Jeff, and to see what you did the other day.
It's great.
Bravo, Jeff. The material and the writing of the story, you have gone from a sort of tiptoeing into it to a full-on professional performer. And so it's amazing for us to see that growth.
I saw Matinee Idol up there. I was like, what?
I'm telling you, Besame Mucho, baby. So on that note, thank you all. Thank you to the students, and especially thank you to Patricia who makes this possible.